Hey everybody, Conscious Economics and Urban Farm Project. Whew. I'm super tired today, and it's so nice. It's kind of overcast as the sun's going down, and I still have weeds. So we have a picture of my garden bed and my little. Tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be able to finish weeding this section. Then I'm going to start on the other stuff that I need to get done. So I have a video that I'm going back 3 years called Consciousness, Looping, Stalking, Hologram. And I haven't really talked about looping for a really long time. And in the video I talk about a situation that basically the same events happen again in time, like, 10 years, maybe not, maybe like 4 years or something. 4 years difference, but it has to do with upstairs. It has to do with the name, and it has to do with violence as well. And both happened in 2 different locations, but basically similar events. And so I'm just going to discuss this because a lot of people don't really understand that we just have continual looping of the same thing over and over again. So my business address is, street address plus California Avenue plus box number 29. And the other day, I ended up having to go see a new patient, and their address was literally 29 California. So I know that it's a looping event. And it's in a totally different town. And then today I also saw, I think on my blog, I have a picture of this moth on this window. And depending on how you look at it, you can blow up the moth and it looks like a giant moth. And I talk a lot about the moth like in Carlo Castaneda. But getting home, I had like a similar moth like on the outside of the window that totally reminded me of that picture. Also have pictures of on my blog of light beings, crystal light beings that for a period of time showed up in different locations, and they let me photograph them and I posted them. So within 2 days of each other, I've had 2 looping events. So am I looping back to a particular place and time? Or am I recycling something? And so those are kind of like things that I'm thinking about. But today I realized like the looping is much more than an event. It could be an address. It could be a picture. It could be so many different things that kind of loop back. And if we don't really pay attention, like we're not really conscious. So the video that you should go check out on my channel is Consciousness, Looping, Stalking, Hologram. And it kind of goes into more detail of this one event that kept happening over and over again. And there was like 4 things that, even though it was different locations or different circumstances, that were like totally the same. It was so bizarre. And I'm really glad because it was a violent loop. And so I'm glad that that violent loop, finally, kind of ceased. And I don't know if it's because I woke up to it or I understand it. But nowadays I'm starting to see, some other looping patterns that are identical to mine. So I think it's just really an interesting thing that, and I don't really see the looping as a good thing, just so you know. I see it as being stuck in a constant regurgitation of events, and that we think that they all are looking different, and that it's all different circumstances and different time period, but they end up being very similar events. And in shamanism, we call it looping. And most people don't even know that these things are happening. I think that if they slowed down and they paid attention, they would find out that their reality is, like a matrix. And I don't look at it as like, oh, maybe it's a lesson coming back around, because there really isn't a lesson. But I think that a lot of it has to do like with my reaction to the looping event. And then how long it decides to replay. How many times does it decide to replay? One time I was at the river, and I've talked about this in one of my videos, and I was sitting there in the morning, and I watched a looping circumstance happen like 6 times in a row, every 20 minutes. And I don't know that if it stopped because I was noticing it, or if it stopped because it was just a morning cycle, and maybe that morning looping only happened on Wednesday and Tuesday, or who knows. Could have been a Saturday. I think it was like during the week. But basically it was a duck that would come flying down the river, really low, squawking from south to north up the river. As soon as the duck passed me, then a butterfly would be released from across the river, fly over, and look like it was going to land in a bush, but actually vanish. And so then it stopped for a few minutes. About every 20 minutes it would happen, 6 times. So these looping events are events that are happening in places, maybe doesn't even really have anything to do with me. And then I also have looping that is happening in my life. And it all could be, a product of the matrix. And that it just recycles the stuff over and over again in different ways. And you have to really pay attention to really understand what's happening. And then you start to realize, like, it's so not real. Like, a lot of this stuff is not real. Like, and the looping causes us to engage. And I think sometimes it's the engagement in a non-conscious way that it continues, no matter what it is. And if you engage it in a very conscious way, that sometimes it seems that the looping events stop. But I thought it was really interesting because I haven't had a lot of looping going on for a while. And all of a sudden, in 3 days, I've had 2 looping events. So anyway, that's all I got for you. Go check out that video. Have a great night. Over and out.